I'm Dan. I'm CTO at CLYSO, and I have the honor of being on the Ceph Executive Council. So this is like an elected three of us that do the overall leadership of the project. Thanks so much to Stephen and OS Nexus for hosting. Venue looks great. The windows were closed earlier. I opened them up so that we could look out the view. That's like amazing. Yeah, so I'll give an introduction to Ceph. Okay, who like lots of familiar faces, some unfamiliar faces. Like who's like using and quite familiar with Ceph, and who's kind of new that you're. I got one hand, so perfect. I got a great assessment of how it is.
Which question? One at a time.
You guys will find out. Anyway, I'm going to explain. Who typed Ceph status today? One, two or three. Okay, yeah. So so traditionally we do a very technical, like state of the Cephalopod introduction to Ceph. Today I kind of want to I want to switch it up and do something like higher level. Let's just talk, rethink what are we doing with Ceph? Like what are the problems? Who's using it? Like what is this thing that's now, actually it's 20 years old today. Not today, this year. So what is Ceph, why, who uses it, and then a bit on the project status and the roadmap, and then how to get started, really, how to just actually get your hands dirty with it. So what is Ceph? We're talking here about open source software-defined storage. That's kind of the fundamentals of what it is with Ceph. And it's a unified system. It's object, block, and file all in one system. That was kind of revolutionary when we started out with Ceph, and that's really the core of still what it is. It's scalable, so it's meant to be incredibly scalable from home lab, few nodes, up to exabyte scale environments. And this is real life. There are home lab users. We'll hear about a platform for that today that can scale like that. And there are lots of exabyte scale environments out there using Ceph. It's also, when we started with Ceph, when Sage started with it at the beginning, and then it became so popular. Really the key killer awesome thing about it is how resilient it was. It's like magic. It's much more intelligent than the conventional. We know about RAID, we know about tape backup and all this stuff. All of that is, it's of course it's great and it's still used so much today. Ceph somehow, the goal was to, it's you remember, who knows what a Beowulf cluster is?
I was just talking about it today.
It's Ceph is the Beowulf of storage. That's really what it is. It's kind of taking these commodity parts, putting together, make some intelligent distributed system. And that's why, in the end, it's all this octopus stuff everywhere. It's you have the intelligence is out in the limbs and things like that. It's everywhere. It's a distributed intelligence. Also important is it's community driven, right? We've learned that technology, you can innovate, and there's so much more you can do in open source. You get all of this such widely diverse ecosystem, people using it. It makes a really great technology with the operators, researchers, enterprises, everyone coming together to make it work. And yeah, it's proven. So by now, 20 years on, we know it runs at any scale, like the largest scientific organizations, like CERN, where I have been working, large things like Bloomberg, many huge cloud providers are using it and beyond. Everyone's using it. So the whole point is that it lets you build your own cloud-grade storage with commodity hardware and full control. Yeah. And I like to, somehow in the mid-2010s, we started saying it's the Linux of storage. That was something we talked about, the future of storage. Okay, now we shouldn't say that anymore because it's now, right? It's not the future, it's today. But it's still it's the Linux of storage. That's something that is important to me because it's why is it important? It's free and open source. It means you have the option to go unlicensed. You have the option, there's no vendor lock-in. You can always you control your data. It's you control your own destiny. This is such a, if you're an organization that's thinking beyond the next 2-3 years, you have to go open source. Otherwise you're beholden to some other vendor. Of course, there's many in this room, like my company, OS Nexus, IBM, many others are offering support. You need that that's a level of assurance and support that you need to be professionally using this stuff. But you always have the option to control your destiny. That's one aspect of this. it's community powered. So that's what I was saying earlier about. It's like you get all of these different points of view contributing and making a better system. That's what makes Linux so great, right? It's that it's like an economic system to like, it's a system for innovation. And Ceph is the same, you know? It was in the 2010s, it was very, very popularly like that. There was all of the different hard drive manufacturers and CPU. Everyone was like putting in the Ceph's the next big thing, and we got it to a level that's amazing. And now it's like it's continuing like that. We're profiting from that. Yeah, it runs everywhere, just like Linux. Home labs to data centers. It runs everywhere. Not only like where is it running, but what does it support? It supports everything. You know, you can have bare metal systems. It supports VMs for your cloud. It's the back end of all Kubernetes, of like huge numbers of Kubernetes clusters and cloud systems. It's just sort of like that technology that fits in and can be reused and solving all kinds of problems. And that's like, yeah, it's modular and flexible. It's pluggable, extensible, and you can really, you know, I talk here like it's so flexible infinitely. Of course, there's limitations in real life, but as a piece of software, it is like this. You can put any kind of workload on it. Linux gave us the freedom to compute. Ceph gives us the freedom to store. Yeah. So in the end, this is the picture that if you've been to a Ceph event before, you've seen this one 1,000 times. This is the architecture of what we have in the end. That very smart, intelligent. Maybe we should rename it to like. We should respell Rados to like our AI ghost or something like that, to have AI there. It's really like this is an intelligent system at the base. And then that's, you know, some users use this thing directly. It's like a low-level object store. Has nothing to do with S3 or Amazon S3 as it might be called, but it's an object store anyway, in a computer sciencey kind of way. And then we, you know, to make it usable, we put those three things, this unified system: object storage, block storage, and file system storage. And that's what every organization needs for storage, right? When I was preparing these, like some of my colleagues said, "Oh, you make sure you put the NVMe over Fabric thing on here." Yes, of course. Like it's there in the middle. It's NVMe over Fabric. It's iSCSI there too. This one here, I mean, you can have gateways for whatever your favorite POSIX file system is, Samba gateways, NFS gateways. It does all of that as well. And on the object side, yeah, it speaks S3 and Swift, and you can, you know, it's any kinds of like just classical HTTP front ends, RESTful front ends, you can put in front of that thing to do infinitely complex things or simple things. Yeah. What I also I'm trying to like tout Ceph's merits. Why is this thing, like what's good about it? It lets you, when I used to give tours of the CERN data center, and like when you're explaining this to like lay people, like what is this? Like why are all these computers stuff? It's like for the Ceph part, for the storage part, it's like everything there is breaking constantly. Every day there's CPUs or hard drives breaking. Maybe like 3 at the same time. Maybe it's like, maybe a whole rack, someone trips over the cable, it gets unplugged. Like you need to make, like computers are unreliable, but you need to make a reliable system out of unreliable parts. That's the whole idea, yeah. And Ceph has like over the years, not just being a reliable system, it's like it constantly, I think we're like unlucky or something. We constantly find problems in every layer of the stack. There's even like one today that we found. So like some examples, Ceph versus hardware. Yeah, like lots of hard drives lie about whether they've flushed the data to the disk, and like or they change their whole model internally on the firmware, and then it just destroys the performance of higher level applications. And like Ceph found that, and we fixed it. NVMe devices and like CPU firmware bugs that just happen with like, you know, having systems with large uptimes. Ceph has found those kind of issues. Unsafe power loss. This is like it's like even different from the hard drive one. Like lots of NVMEs are not, they're lying as well about the thing. And so we also like work with the NVMe specification teams to like improve the QA process of the whole NVMe standard. Like Ceph does this kind of thing, yeah. On the network, there's like, at some point, like I think different Ceph operators realize like, oh, I'm supposed to be the storage person, but like I'm always the one calling the network team that there's a problem with the network. It's like the Ceph people are better network monitors than the network team are, and and that has been, but somehow like Ceph always survives those kind of things. So I've seen all kinds of packet corruptions, flaky links, routing mistakes, and like Ceph is always the first to notice, and like it always survives. The other file systems, I've seen so many other file systems like die, corrupt data, oops, have to like tell the user, sorry, it's gone, but Ceph always survives. And then also Linux itself, Ceph debugs Linux, like memory allocator problems there was a huge issue with LZ4 compression library. Like this is getting really technical, but I'm just like trying to say like we have found so many issues. And like the latest one that's going on right now is it's like because Ceph is like ahead of the game, we're like pointing out problems in some of the enterprise Linux distributions. Like it's just never ending. But yeah, we're not just resilient, but we also like make the whole stack better. That's what I want to say about Ceph. Then I want to talk about like it's like how do you convince people to use Ceph, because it's this old established, probably everyone's heard of Ceph by now, and they've formed their opinion about it. Maybe they're afraid to try it. It's too hard. This is just for PhD students or something like that. But we don't really talk too much about who's using it. Originally, I made a slide of all the logos, and then someone said, "Oh, Dan, better not put all the logos. You got to respect all their copyrights and all that. You got to ask permission." So I smeared them out like it's like, and then just wrote the words here, and yeah. So like these are just examples of organizations that have publicly spoken about how they're using Ceph. This is over the last couple of years, like the Ceph conference that we just had in Geneva, or different Ceph Days in the last few years. I mean, there's some very familiar names on these on this slide, right? And just like we can tell you, like, so our public telemetry has something like 4,000 clusters reporting to it, and it says like 2 exabytes, like this kind of number. But we know, because we have other connections and things, that not every cluster can report publicly. The real number is probably, I mean, at least 10 times that. But it's basically used. It's used in very many like surprising places, and it's really trusted. And you tend to hear about the bad news, like everything else. You only hear like, oh, there's a problem here, like, but it's actually used successfully, like in all of these organizations and many more. Yeah. And this is we like for a long time, Ceph sort of, it rode a trend wave of like a hype wave of private clouds in the like 2010s when cloud computing started, and then there was you need to have also like an on-prem version of a cloud. That's when Ceph was like in the right place at the right time to have a storage system that could like back that, and that's OpenStack, of course. And we always were watching like, oh, how many, like what percentage of the OpenStack users are using Ceph? OpenStack became, I don't know, did anyone, who went to like an OpenStack or Open Infrastructure conference in the mid-2010s? Anthony, yeah. I mean, these were like, who's been to a KubeCon? Yeah, so KubeCon, like how many people? Like 10,000 people, something like that. Like that's what the OpenStack conferences were like 10 years earlier. And we had a few of those in Vancouver, yeah, so that was fun. But I got to fly home for that, exactly, yeah. But this was, every single vendor had to have a storage product that would support and have a driver for OpenStack. And like you could see them all there at the bottom, and like over the years. And the OpenStack community does a really good job with user polls, user surveys to find out what everyone's using, so that they can, put the effort and help support what's going on, right? And it's like, yeah, like in the most recent statistics, by now it's like 82% of survey responders are. It's like, so like 8 out of 10 dentists are using Ceph, right? Yeah. It's and there's so many, like, when I looked at the data, it's not to like pick on other technologies or something like that, but like proprietary technologies, they always have the same curve. It's like they have like a 3 to 5 year little cycle like that. It's always the same. They convince, they get great marketing, great product, everything, performance looks amazing, install it, and it's like, oh, I gotta migrate the data. It's like, okay, you learn that lesson once. You can't, if you've got petabytes of data, how do you migrate it? In Ceph, you don't have to migrate the data. It's like, you just replace the hardware underneath, and it rebalances stuff. It's like things like that. It's so innovative in ways that yeah, it's just kind of taking over. But yeah, voila. So on the private cloud space, it's massive. I don't have a slide here, but in the Kubernetes world, we don't have the same kind of statistics, but it looks like something like 30-40% are using Ceph in the Kubernetes space from what I've been able to find. But it's again, we can't get such accurate numbers in that case. Like, what are they using it for? So this is now like the use cases. How do we it's so flexible and used in so many different ways. We have, like I mentioned before, like this kind of cloud infrastructure, so like on-prem for doing object block or file storage, for all of your kind of OpenStacky Kubernetes or sovereign clouds. That's now becoming a big topic around the world is having sovereign clouds. Also high-performance computing, like Ceph was born out of a high-performance computing. It was actually initially written to replace Lustre. If you're familiar with Lustre, that was the whole idea at the beginning. But it's still used today. It did not displace Lustre yet. That's like my pet project, but it will. But it's not like some kind of conquering thing. It's just because it's like I imagine those poor Lustre admins suffering like with problems and stuff. Like Ceph will, they should. It's like share the love somehow. Yeah, so it's still used there, and it's like in the AI world, it has a huge potential. Enterprise backup and archiving, of course. There's tons of huge object stores based on Ceph that are used as backup targets, and like several like companies based on that whole paradigm of like backing up to their company, which is actually just Ceph behind the scenes. Yep, AI/ML pipelines. Media and content delivery, of course, the largest Ceph clusters out there are doing media delivery for, back on that slide of who's using, you can recognize the names there, for videos, images, files, etc. And then, of course, like internal stuff. So like, you need some internal CI pipeline. You need a storage that's trendy, that fits in with all of the stuff that coming out of university students, they know a certain stack. It's like Ceph is part of that. And it fits in. So it adapts your needs, pet project up to petabytes in production. I also wanted to just highlight one thing, which is that often, Ceph is touted as this universal storage, unified storage system, general purpose storage, but it's not the most high performance storage. Okay, but that's like a misunderstanding too. It's like a myth. The reality is that if you spend some effort tuning it, you can get numbers that beat any of the other file systems. So this is an example that we have on the Ceph blog of one company that was just getting some new hardware. Okay, let's just tune things to the max and see what kind of impressive numbers that we could get. And with some tuning, like not a huge amount, but you can achieve 1 terabyte per second and 25 million IOPS in a Ceph cluster, and all the details are there. That was something that my colleague Mark Nelson and I had the chance to work on, and it's like Ceph isn't slow. It just needs to be tuned, and that's the thing. That cluster, it says there. Does it say the number? There were 500 clients. I don't remember the size. It's on it was on that order of like 400, 500 NVMEs, that kind of thing. Yeah. So. And this is like evidence of that point, like innovation through collaboration. So it really thrives and gets better because of the different contributions, and like I have some real concrete examples, right? Like I said, Ceph really latched onto that cloud OpenStack hype curve, and that was just out of fortunate chance because a user contributed the whole subsystem called RBD to Ceph back in 2010. Hey, I think this would be a good idea. Ceph would be a great block storage system, and like sent the code in, and then that's what was the game changer for Ceph. Blue Store was a collaboration from lots of different companies. Samsung works hard in like deduplication, and Crimson, which is our kind of next generation OSD, that's a collaboration of lots of different companies working together. And this is the, like, what are those called? Like, I forget, the word cloudy thing, yeah. For our release that we did in 2023, the R release, these are the companies and universities and everything that contributed to that one. So we really have like thousands of different committers, hundreds of different companies all working. It's not built by one company, it's built by all of us together. Yeah. Now here's something about like, as of now, what's going on in the project. So like we always, in the Ceph world, in the upstream Ceph, upstream is like the open source one, downstream is the different vendors working on it. We have 2 active releases always. That's Reef and Squid now. And like this, like the slides will be made available. You click and you can get the real actual numbers of what people are using. And we've just frozen version 20. That's Tentacle. We've just done the like feature freeze on that. It'll be released later this year. But what's like really, it's like going to be actually a really interesting, exciting release because it has some the focus of this release is like better, lower cost, like cost efficiency of storage. And the way that that's getting implemented is through like a much more performant erasure coding backend. So the current implementation we have is very safe and reliable, but for things like block storage where you're doing lots of small writes, it's not the most efficient and performant thing. So this is now like dramatically improved. And then also, yeah, we have like spent a lot of effort in those gateways, like for fitting into the enterprise environments with Samba, like Windows environments, NFS, NVMe over Fabric, and it's going to really like improve like things a lot. This is how to get started with Ceph. There's like it's down to a 2-liner if you put ampersands in it. I guess like you can really just do this and install a Ceph cluster. Then we have documentation. We have a community thing, Slack and mailing list. You can get there. And then just last thing, linking to different events and how to contribute. And if you have a company that's participating or something, you can join the Ceph Foundation and contribute to all this effort as well. And yeah, if there's any questions, or we can go through that. Thank you. Thank you.